welcome to your Midday History News. I'm Cale Hendrickson.
And I'm Craig Garrett, and today's top story is Alexander Graham Bell, who today probably wouldn't know what to make of a selfie, but he kicked off the communication revolution with this telephone back in the 1870s. To celebrate the 100th anniversary of the first transaction phone call, let's learn more about the man and his amazing machines.
Now, he is widely credited with the invention of the telephone, which has us allowed to call that cute girl or boy up on Saturday night and say, "Hey babe, you free?" Now, we've all heard of perfect timing, but what if we told you he merely filed his patent a mere hours ahead of a man who wanted to copy it, which goes to show the early bird does get the worm.
After he invented the telephone, he was against having one in his study as he found it is intrusive. Now, most of us would hardly be able to go with one for 5 minutes. Cale, what are you doing?
Oh, sorry.
We're trying to do a newscast here.
Sorry.
Now, will you please talk about his early life?
Yes. Now, it is widely known that his birthday was March 3rd, 1847. He was born in Edinburgh, Scotland, as well as he had two brothers, Melville and Edward, who, sadly, both died of tuberculosis. His father's work became his inspiration for experiments in sound, as well as he received support from his mother to take on bigger challenges, who herself was nearly deaf and could play the piano exceptionally well. She was merely his inspiration, as he decided he wanted to do something in sound to help the deaf hear better, and worked on visible text. He then furthered the work of his father on visible speech for the deaf, and eventually took over the company as he followed in his father's footsteps.
And in other news, Alexander Graham Bell was very intrigued by the robot and sought to further his research in his family pet, including the family dog, which he first taught to continually growl, then stuck his hand in its mouth and manipulated the various parts of its mouth and vocal cords to produce sound. Eventually he was able to make the dog say, "How are you, Grandma?" This was one of his earliest experiments with sound.
Thanks for that, Craig. Now, please, can we get on to some useful news about his schooling and teaching?
Okay. Alexander Graham Bell attended 2 years of high school and was fairly mediocre. He also learned how sound through experiments. He was educated at the University of London and also studied under his grandfather. He taught elocution, assisted his father work in visible speech, and taught school in England for the deaf. He was also a noted phonetician.
Now, on to inventions and accomplishments. Craig, do you have any inventions or accomplishments you would like to share?
Well, this one time at band camp, I ate a whole pizza, then stuffed another one into my jacket and left.
Alright. Thank you, Craig. Now, for his inventions and accomplishments. He was the inventor of the telephone, which later came to be this wonderful device right here that we all know and have come to love. However, the first telephone was not as fancy as your iPhone, or, if you're an Android supporter, your Galaxy. Now, his first phone was merely a box that had wires with a microphone that transmitted sound through other wires and communicated it to the other end. He discovered, one day, he found out his telephone really worked, as his assistant Watson was in the other room, and he bumped over a set of transmitting fluid and cried out, "Watson, come here, I need your help." And Watson heard him through the wires in the next room, which proved that his telephone did indeed work. He was the inventor of the graphophone, a device that played music for many people. He was the inventor of the twisted pair, a set of electrical wires that were able to transmit currents differently than other wires at the time. He established a school for the deaf in Massachusetts, Boston. How lovely of him. He worked with planes. The Silver Dart was the first powered machine flown in Canada, and was a very simple device that looked a lot like the Wright brothers' first airplane. Now, he also worked with the tetrahedral kite, which is a special type of kite that he used for different experiments just simply to learn about it, as he became very interested in aeronautics. He worked on hydrofoils, aka boats, and he set a world record for speed with his hydrofoil, which outperformed any of the other hydrofoils at the time. He established the Volta Laboratory, a science research department on an island that was strictly devoted to mere science and nothing else. Now, he established the American Association to Promote Teaching of Speech for the Deaf, AAPTSD. So, Greg?
Sadly, the man who invented the telephone died after falling off a telephone pole. No, I'm just kidding, but that would be pretty ironic. He died August 2nd, 1922, in Breton Island, Nova Scotia, Canada.
Thanks for watching today's exciting top story on Alexander Graham Bell. You stay classy, Rock Creek World History Class 3S.